Hello and welcome to another episode of Creative Secrets. This episode will be about 5 rules of writing that every writer should know. I'm telling you this now because before I get into details of the writing process, it's important to keep these things in mind. And if you already are a writer, I think you really should know these rules. If you don't, it's about time you did, and that's what this video is about. I'll keep it short because I want to keep these videos under 10 minutes, so let's get started. These aren't in any particular order, so we'll start number 5, and that is you must control your story. Don't let your story control you. Now you may think that's kind of crazy. How can that be? Well, a lot of writers are controlled by their characters. They don't really know where they're going. They come up with an idea and then they just follow it and go where it leads them. The trouble is you are the writer. You should be controlling the flow of information. You should be controlling the flow of the story. If you're just going on a whim and a whimsy and following things around, you don't have control. You need to get that under control. It's okay to come up with an idea that you want to follow, but then when you edit the story, it must be under control. It must be tightly woven into the story. It can't be that one character suddenly springs up and you want to just follow that character and go write stories when that wasn't the original intent of your story. You should know what the original intent of your story is, and I will get into that later, but remember, control your story, don't let it control you. Number 4, ego. Insecurity versus hubris. Ego is the enemy of all writers. You can't afford to be crippled by insecurity or by hubris. Hubris often has people become lazy and full of themselves, and then they become weaker as a result because you stop getting better when you stop trying to learn things. When you think you're too good and too smart to learn anything new, then you're a loser. I'm telling you right now, nobody stops learning if they're going to be really good. Everyone continues to work on their craft right up until the end if you're good. If you're not good, you won't do that. So I'm telling you right now, you got to have the attitude that you want to progress your craft, you want to get better. Whereas if you're too critical of yourself, if you're too insecure, you can be crippled by that. And that's where a lot of people who have writer's block dwell. They get stuck not being able to figure out how to get out of the corner they painted themselves into. Well, the answer to that is a lot of things, which I will get into in a later episode. But you have to get a handle of your ego. Okay, you're not greater than anyone else. You're not pathetic either. Don't tell yourself that you're terrible. The only way to get good is to do things, and you have to keep doing them until you get good. It's called practice. You could not become a great ball player or a pianist or anything without lots and lots and lots of practice. That's how those people become good. They would never be stars if they didn't work their ass off to get there. You have to do the same thing. To become really good takes commitment, point blank. Number 3, show, don't tell. Probably one of the most important things you can know. Please show your audience things rather than tell them. Tell them as little as possible. Show them. Show them in ways that's unique and interesting. Don't go for the easy info dump, which so many writers do, and it's terrible. And that is where an exposition-laden conversation where people are telling each other things that they should already know, but the audience doesn't. That's a very poor way to get information across. It's better to show people, even if they don't know what they're looking at first, you can show them something, a scene of something happening, and they may not be able to connect it until later with what's really going on. That's a way you can tell a story. But if you tell the story by just people explaining background and everything in great detail, that's really boring and lazy, and that is not to be done if you're any good at this. It's a poor technique, and it should be avoided at all costs. However, there are times where you have to do that, but whenever possible, show, don't tell. Number 2, Don't preach, convince. This is very important in this day and age where PC has run amok and people are getting politics shoved down their throat everywhere they turn. People are getting sick of it, and I don't blame them because I am sick of it. But the point is, people do not like to be preached at. People do not like to be lectured. People do not like to have politics shoved down their throat. If you want people to accept your arguments, then you have to convince them. It's simple as that. And let's not forget, entertainment means entertaining people. It doesn't mean lecturing them. It doesn't mean preaching to them. It doesn't mean screaming at them. It doesn't mean calling them names. It means you've got to entertain them. You've got to give them a reason to spend their time and their energy and their money on your project. So you have to make it worth their while, and that means you have to convince people through the act of entertaining them. You cannot convince them by any of the brute force methods that too many people today are trying to use, and that is why so many politically charged movies generally fail, and they only manage to appeal to those who already agree with the argument. You cannot win any arguments by lecturing people. People do not want to be lectured. They don't want to hear it, and I'm telling you right now, it's a good idea to keep that in mind. It's a number one priority. Make your movie, make your story, make your comic entertaining, please. Number one, I saved the best for last. A story is about something. That sounds like an obvious statement, but the fact is a lot of people don't understand this point. A story should be about something. It should lead somewhere. It should end in a certain point. It should make a point. It should not be a random sequence of events that don't go anywhere. And it should not be about a bunch of action scenes and an excuse for a fight or something like that. People remember stories that have a point. They don't remember stories that don't have a point. If you want someone to remember your story, if you want your story to last the test of time, then it has to be about something. And it might take you a while to really understand this fully, but you have to consider that whatever happens in the story, there should be a point to it all. And the story is an argument, and your job is to prove the argument. Your characters are there to prove or disprove a point. The hero, for example, can prove your point through his actions or her actions. The villain is sort of like the counter-argument, as I will get into later. It all has to have relevance, to have meaning, because ultimately we receive meaning from stories. Are sort of like a window into our existence. The whole purpose of fiction is to somehow give us meaning that we're lacking elsewhere. Okay, that's it for this episode, and next episode I will get into a lot more of what gives a story meaning and what the purpose of a story is. For now, please check the links below for my comic agenda, which is now in its final month of Indiegogo. And also check out my book, The Secrets of Writing, which is a good study guide for this course that I'm doing. It's a book I wrote a couple years ago, and I think you'll find it very useful if you're looking to find out more. The links are all below in the description. And please subscribe if you haven't done so and click that notification bell. I'll see you next time. Thank you.